Hi, this is Greg Remke. I direct programs at Economic Thinking, and we do workshops on the economics of high school, homeschool, and world schools, debate topics and motions. So these are comments on the economics of the prison reform topic that is proposed by NCFCA as one of their choices for 2022. U.S. federal government significantly reform its policies regarding convicted prisoners under federal jurisdiction. This prison reform has been a debate topic in the public schools. Criminal justice has been a debate topic in earlier resolutions. Reforming the way prisons are managed is a good idea. Lots of interesting ideas on this. I have a post on this topic. Oh, and also I should mention who the World Winter Holidays Open, a World Schools tournament, had a motion on retribution should not be a function of the criminal justice system. Punishment shouldn't. They're saying it should be instead rehabilitation or restitution or something else. Similarly, NSDA, the Public School League, has this year a topic looking for substantial criminal justice reform on forensic science, policing, or sentencing. So not the management of prisons, but in the criminal justice field. So many resources to recommend. Stand Together has a broad effort to reform the criminal justice system. As Mark Davis has commented, much of this is at the state level, most prisoners, so most of their policies are there. But there's a number of different areas to look at. So I'm going to encourage you to go to their website to get their materials, and we'll try and get people from Stand Together that work on criminal justice to comment on this topic for you. Here's why prison reform matters in the U.S. This is the Criminal Justice Project, I think at the Koch Institute. Yeah, the Charles Koch Institute. And then I have posts on this before from past debate topics on these earlier topics. So looking at restorative justice, a Christian basis to the criminal justice system, which is in a sense crimes are sort of a tort. You've damaged someone's property, you've caused harm to a family. The biblical approach, historical approach is to make well again, to make the victim well again. The purpose of the state is to ensure that you do that, as well as keep you from committing more crimes. But it's an interesting story there, and you can find more at Justice Fellowship, which now has another name. I'll have more links. Okay, I have an article I'm writing on this now, but since it's easier to talk than to write, I'm recording this first, but I'll have this up on Economic Thinking soon. And I'm going to focus on jobs, vouchers, and justice for the topic. You could look at Mark Davis's comments on the NCFCA topic. This is the link to the YouTube video where you can find more discussion of how he analyzes the topic, which I think is a strong background for students considering this. I'm proposing in my article, I say, gosh, we've got school vouchers for school reform. Why not prison vouchers? Why not a criminal is found guilty and sentenced to federal prison, and he gets a voucher. You hand him a voucher. It's going to cost the federal government X number of dollars for him to be incarcerated per year. Why not let him take that voucher and go where he wants to? Maybe a prison, with a nice view and rated high on prison B&B or prison orbits. Okay, I'm being silly, but you can look at the University of Pennsylvania Law Review on this to discuss the benefits of choice. What is it we care about? We want these guys off the street. We want them rehabilitated. We would like to have their expenses paid for. We'd like to have them help restore the victims and restorative justice. Prison vouchers give us some alternatives to do that. The same reason teachers unions oppose school choice is why prison guard unions would oppose prison choice. And at the state level in California, the two most powerful lobbying groups are the state teachers union in California, and second is the prison guards union. And they both lobby the legislature. They have a lot of money, a lot of employees, and their interests aren't necessarily in the citizens' interest. Okay, that's a different wording. That should be covered up in a minute. Okay, so some arguments against retribution. Again, forming this topic that you should say, how are we going to change it? Well, retribution, punishing prisons shouldn't be the purpose. One part is because most of the people in federal prisons didn't have a trial, that jury trial, which is guaranteed by the Constitution, but the system doesn't allow it, or doesn't, makes it very, very difficult. So some 3% of people had jury trials. So we should consider the very real possibility that many people in federal prison have been railroaded in there through plea bargaining, that unless they pleaded guilty, they were threatened with sentences that were 5-10 times longer. So another reason to have a system that is as just to them as possible, given that they're in this situation. The system's way too slow as it is, so it doesn't provide deterrence. We've got overcriminalization. There are far too many people in prison that didn't commit crimes. I mean, it's a federal crime. If you pick up a feather on the way home and, give it to a friend, sell it to a friend, you may have committed a felony and you can go to prison. That seems crazy. If you sell lobsters that aren't properly packaged, or sell orchids that have been imported that may be illegal to sell in Peru, you can have a federal SWAT team show up and throw you in prison. There's a dozen federal agencies that have their own police forces and their own judicial systems. So lots of problems in the status quo. Highly recommended is You Have the Right to Remain Innocent, this book on the right, and I've got it behind me here. The Justice and Reconciliation Project that used to be Prison Fellowship, highly recommended. One Nation Under Arrest, this book, Right on Crime, Heritage Foundation, way too many laws, way too many people in prison. Environmental crimes, people accidentally drip some oil into a stream, that's a federal crime. So another reason we want to be very careful with how we treat people who are already sentenced. Again, the topic is not going to let you go back and retry these people or find them innocent, but it does give you the option to treat them fairly and justly while they're incarcerated. So retribution and punishment terrible due to the corrupt and mismanaged prisons would be one assertion, which is why restitution is valuable. When you set restitution as the core value for people that are incarcerated, then you have to find who they harmed. And if there's no victim, it's there's no complaining witness, and it's not clear what the crime is. Retribution is expensive to victims. So not only do people get assaulted and, let's say, have to go through the jury system, court system to try and find out who did it to them, they have to pay for the costs for the federal prison. Unions are a part of that. So rehabilitation or restitution are more just, although for rehabilitation, be sure to look at the C.S. Lewis quote on rehabilitation, and that's That Hideous Strength, the third in his science fiction novel series, looks at rehabilitation as the core to the legal system in this bad world, this dystopia, because it lasts forever. You don't get out until you're rehabilitated, where the value he sees in punishment or retribution is that it's limited. You're punished, 5 years, 10 years, some number, but at the end you get out. Rehabilitation, not clear if you get out. Okay. More thoughts on this topic. I'm going to switch.
If the justice system were apparent, we would call it abusive and neglectful. It punishes too much and not often enough.
Okay, this video, which the link to is this filling up the prisons without reducing crime. The author there, the interviewed on this video, is saying that because it's mismanaged, the prison system, criminal justice system, doesn't know what a parent knows about being serious when you're giving warnings. And there's more to that story. So too many laws and regulations is the theme. Overcriminalization, torts versus crimes, mismanaged courts and prisons, what every parent knows. And it's Mark Kleeman, I think, is the author there. Mark Kleeman, American's Criminal Justice System. You can find that video. Again, a challenge with all the prison reform issues. They seem to apply more to the state because that's where most of the prisoners are, but relevant for the federal government too. Too much crime, intolerable number of people behind bars, 5% of the world's population, 25% of the prisoners. Here's a video on from 0%. This is about the Sing Sing prison, again, a state prison. However, what's the relevance? They argue here that for prisoners in Sing Sing, they have the opportunity to get a college degree. They can take classes. It turns out a bunch of these guys who've never done well in school turn out to be very capable students. They're the best students that many of the teachers have. Joanne Skousen talks about this in her discussion in the video. But for federal prisons, offering education incentives, making sure that anybody who wants a college degree while they're in prison should have access to one, a quality education, because there's far less recidivism, 0% at the time this was filmed from this program at Sing Sing. So this is part of the Hudson Link program. He who opens a school door closes a prison, a quote from Victor Hugo. So for your topic, focusing on quality education might be a good idea. Now, of course, be careful. The kind of education, the social justice education in our universities, maybe that would make people more fanatical criminals if they took the wrong courses. But in any case, most people want to have an education that helps them understand the world, sort of a classical education, as well as getting job skills, the sort of thing that's discussed, professional skills for when people get out. So restorativejustice.org looks at justice for the victims as well as the criminals. And again, this is from earlier talks, so it's not clear which things fit best as you do this topic, but as you're reflecting on the topic, I think this is a good time to do it since it's been chosen, or it's a choice. So stronger reliance on restorative justice principles would enable convicted criminals opportunities, again, to develop job skills, to pay for their crime, to earn their way back. In a sense, this restorative justice encompasses both the others, retribution and rehabilitation. Because, if you've got to earn $50,000 to pay back your victim, that's no fun to spend time working, earning that money, paying somebody else. That's a kind of a punishment. But it turns out it works best for rehabilitation because you're earning your way back into society. You're, you've done your duty. You've restored both the victim who you harmed, and you should get all your rights back after. So having an opportunity for this in federal prisons would be a good thing. There are other obstacles in the way that we'll talk about. The ability to work, to have access to private sector jobs, to job training, that should be part of every prison, but it isn't because it's the government. Or because the government's mismanaged with only prison industries and not the sort of dynamism that should be available. And of course, states have tried this. What was it? I think Tennessee tried to put in a program. They had prisoners doing online orders. And of course, they were copying down everybody's Visa card number and addresses and stealing stuff when they got out. So that didn't work. So you can't have prisoners, making guns or howitzers or things like that. But there's lots of work that they can do, learn job skills that are safe. And in fact, that's the fabulous story of the Maine State Prison, where a free market economy broke out simply because entrepreneurs allowed prisoners to work and earn money. Money isn't available in federal prisons. It's against the code. It should be. Okay, federal court system, criminal justice cases, again, way too many. Right on Crime is the sort of conservative organization trying to reduce crime and reduce the number of crimes. Too expensive in the status quo. You can learn more about that. These, pretrial detention is not relevant to the topic because it's narrowed to prevent that. Again, people should have jury trials. Mandatory minimum sentences should be eliminated, reform the prisons. And too many economic and regulatory crimes. Again, these are the outside of the realm of this resolution. But in terms of around, you could say, here's another reason why we want to make sure the prisons are not mistreating people, because many people are in there for regulatory crimes that they shouldn't be in for. Okay, this is jury trials, and again, similar issues, background issues, but relevant. Here's a post I had on this some years ago. I put this famous person image on here because it gets more clicks when you write an article. And this is Economic Thinking, Jury Trials, a Radical Reform. Why don't we have jury trials? And it's an amazing story. And, you know, more on this. Why do innocent people plead guilty? How many people in federal prison now are innocent? It's worth considering. State 2. A case against plea bargaining. Again, this is background issues relevant for the topic in general, but not for the particular resolution. Restorative justice, and you can search for the various, and I think I'll put a link to the PDF overhead so you can just click on these links if you want. Okay, I'm just going to zip through this. Again, this is the heritage overcriminalization background. Institute for Justice also looks at how many everyday jobs are illegal, particularly relevant for homeschoolers because the federal government can make homeschooling illegal anytime they want to, or put onerous restrictions on it that people aren't going to follow. And then you may have the benefit of rethinking your affirmative case from your federal prison cell down the road. This is more background discussion on judicial engagement. What role should the court have in, we don't want an activist court who's overriding legislation, but on the other hand, we want the Supreme Court to protect constitutional rights, and that requires engagement. So there's a back and forth discussion of this. Institute for Justice is on this. This video, Braiding Freedom, is a state level issue about how it's illegal to hair braid, and so many different jobs or work are illegal state by state. And the argument is economic freedom, the protections in the Bill of Rights, should prevent state and federal governments from making the right to earn a living illegal. So I've skipped the video that would normally show. Some books on this that are relevant just on constitutional rights and the Constitution. I've got some handouts on this. Again, this is on overcriminalization in society, environmental crimes. Federalist 62 is another interesting issue. If the law is so complex and voluminous that people can't possibly understand it, those laws aren't valid. A law is defined to be a rule of action. How can we know what that rule is, which is little known and keeps changing? And this is from Federalist 62. Okay, again, restitution. And that's it. Thank you very much. Hope you, if you have questions, please let me know. Thanks.